Okay, great. So welcome everybody to week 6 of Get Optimized. We have some exciting guest speakers with us today. We're really excited to share this content with you. It's going to be all about LinkedIn and creating a roadmap to success. And it's some pretty good stuff. So we will transition on into that. We just have a few announcements that we wanted to make before we passed it over to our friends over at rFactor. Really briefly, I just wanted to recap week 5, what we talked about last week. So last week was all about sales conversations and prospecting. We do have the link to the Get Optimized site up on the screen for you. You guys can access all of the resources that we released on week 5 by accessing that link. We had some really good conversation starters. We had some that were specific to Office 365. Then that was broken out by different types of solutions, so that was fantastic, and those are available for you. And then we also had some general guidance around conversation starters and some generic conversation starters that we thought would be interesting to share with you. We also talked about the marketing and sales funnel, how those connect together, and how to evaluate the activities that you are doing against that funnel and create your own funnel. And we also had a tool for you, which is the online marketing planner that allows you to build your own funnel as well. So that's really great because it helps you understand your conversion rates. And as you're starting to work through these marketing activities, you can use that as a checkpoint to understand if you're improving and where you have the best conversions and where they're not doing so well and how to focus your time moving forward. And then lastly, we had Lori from EMM do a good portion of the presentation last week, and she gave some great information about prospecting and lead generation, specifically covering SEO, lists, and LinkedIn a little bit as well. So there's some great content there. If you didn't attend the webinar last week and haven't watched the recording, that's all loaded up on the Get Optimized site, and we highly recommend that you take advantage of that. And again, that URL is up on the screen as well, and the slides are loaded as well as all of the conversation starter resources too. So I'm going to hand it over to Ginny in just a moment, but before I do that, I know that this is week 6, so this is event week for a lot of you guys if you are following the recommended program. Most of you are having your events between week 5 and week 6, so I just wanted to take a moment and pause and see if you guys had any questions about events that you wanted to bring up right now before we dive into the rest of the content, or if you have any results to share potentially, or experiences or learnings that you want to share with the greater team, that would be great as well.
Feel free to come off mute or to post something into the chat window. Is anyone doing an event or has done an event?
I know we have some folks that were planning events, but maybe not for this week, so that's totally fine. Okay, great. Well, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ginny, and she's going to talk about a contest that we have coming up.
Yeah, fantastic. And so I see a couple of things coming in. So Kelly, you tried to do a webinar, but you didn't get enough interest. So that's really good to know. You know, we'll be talking about social selling today, and you know, last week we certainly talked about other conversation starters, etc. So it sounds like still looking to try and have more people get interested, and that's definitely something I want to talk more about. Maybe check into kind of what you're planning on focusing your webinar on, so we can kind of get some lessons learned there. If we have time today at the end, maybe we can talk about that. If not, maybe on the office hours on Thursday, because I think it'd be great to dive into that a little bit further. And then Rob, you're saying you've got one set for August, and that's going to be an on-site event. Fantastic. That's great.
Thanks for your feedback.
Yeah, we always want to hear, what you're doing and how we can help more. So whether that's kind of, figuring out for the webinar, how maybe we can help you to get more interest, or, set something up in the short term, or how we can set you up for the future, so that you're ready to go for that event, coming up, within a few months or so. All right, so we really are looking for just feedback on the program and what you're doing and how you're doing it and what you're learning. We know each week we're providing new content, different content. Some of you are trying to do all of it. Some of you are just focusing on 1 or 2 pieces of the content that we go through. Both of those are perfect ways to get involved in this program. And to Robin, to your point, yes, when the 8 weeks is over, we will continue to have the Yammer group stay active. All of those resources that are up on Get Optimized will continue to be there at least through June 30th, potentially longer. So this isn't going away. This is 8 weeks of content, but we're still here for you beyond that. We do want to keep working with you to make sure that you're moving forward. And part of that is, we have a bit of a contest that we're putting together. And basically with this, we do want to see that you've attended at least 3 of the lessons or watch them on demand, because we know sometimes the timing just doesn't work, and we understand that. And then beyond that, what we're going to be looking to have is, it's not ready just yet, but you'll have a form that you can fill out, which will share about the marketing that you've undertaken or started undertaking as part of this program. So whether that's an email campaign or updating your Office 365 landing page, updating your value proposition. We know each of you is interacting with this program in a different way. And we just want to see what that is and help you to, to get better and continue to improve. And so we'll be looking to have you submit that information in about the campaign that you're doing. And then based on that, we will award a prize to the partner with the best campaign that they've put together. So more information is coming up on that. We're just finalizing some of the details now, but wanted to make sure you were aware of it so you could start thinking about, okay, what's the program or what's the activity that I'm doing that's going to be right for this? What do I want to submit? What do I want to do in the next week or two so that I'm in the best possible situation to be able to submit something strong to the contest?
And they have until May 30th, potentially, to enter.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll have the submission information out probably later this week. We'll send that out via email. We'll have that on the Yammer page, and of course, we'll also talk about that on the office hours on Thursday.
Perfect.
And then, yeah, you will have through May 30th to actually go and submit the information.
Yeah, so our last webinar for week 8 is on the week of the 17th and the 19th. Correct, is the last office hour, so you'll get a little bit of extra time that you can focus on putting together your marketing campaign if you need to before you submit your entry.
Exactly. All right, and then for any of you who haven't already signed up for the one-on-one consulting hours that are part of this program, you probably received an email from me yesterday. This is just such an important part of the program. Each week we talk about different best practices and trainings and ways that you can do marketing, but we really want to make sure that you're taking this to the next level and beyond just what you're doing with us today, really continue to drive your marketing action plan forward, creating that long-term constant marketing presence. And the one-on-one consulting hours that we have through Extra Mile Marketing as part of this program is just a great way to have a very specific action plan put together for your company. Extra Mile Marketing works with a ton of Microsoft partners. They really know the business landscape. And if you don't totally know what you want to work with them on, just reach out to them and start a conversation, and they can help you figure out what's the best thing for you to start on right now and what you want to focus on moving forward. So I really can't say enough. This is such a huge value. It's about $1,000, probably more if you're going out to work with them on your own, and you get that free of cost as part of this program. So please reach out to HOMA and just start that conversation now. We do have a deadline of May 10th for you to start that conversation. That doesn't mean that you have to do everything by May 10th. All you have to do is start the conversation, reach out to HOMA, and schedule some time to start working with their team. So really can't say enough, and thanks, Jess, for putting the email in the window there, how useful and important this opportunity is, and I really do recommend that everyone takes advantage of that. All right, and with that, I want to introduce our guest presenters today. We've got the team from rFactor on the line. We've got Jason Taylor and Kristen Lawrence. We've worked with rFactor for quite a while, and just a great team, and have some really, really insightful best practices that they're going to share today. Kristen?
Great. Thank you so much, Jenny and Edith, and hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about social selling, but specifically how you can use LinkedIn to start generating tangible business results. You'll see both my contact information and my colleague Jason Taylor's here on your screen. And please do complete the digital handshake with us. So that means reach out. We'd love to connect with all of you via LinkedIn and Twitter, even phone and email. I know Jason's going to be monitoring some chat questions if you have any that come through, but otherwise, please do reach out so we can stay connected even after today's session's over. So as we jump right in, I wanted to talk a little bit about today's changing buying process. Overall, and this probably does not come as a surprise to many, the buying process is shifting and changing. According to Marketo, 93% of B2B buyers are actually beginning the buying process online using internet search. They are self-researching, they're self-educating, they're looking up product and brand information, and they're asking the opinion of their online connections. Really, the fact is that over the past few years, even the past decade, buyers have become increasingly informed. So they're relying on the wealth of information available to them on the internet, and as such, they're not relying as heavily on both sales reps and marketers as the keepers of that information. They're doing their own research and they're drawing their own conclusions. So as a result, anywhere between 60 and 90% of today's buying journey has actually been completed before engagement with a sales engineer. Now, yes, the statistics do range. Forrester, Corporate Executive Board, Serious Decisions, they all have their numbers, but regardless of the source, the fact is that now when a prospect is considering making a purchase, they can find out almost everything that they need to know, at least to narrow down vendors with just a few keystrokes online. And then, of course, on the flip side, connecting to prospects using traditional means, it's becoming much more challenging. Emails. The average business person receives over 121 emails every day. It's incredibly noisy. It's hard to cut through the clutter. What's more is 92% of buyers say that they actually hit delete immediately when they receive an email from somebody that they don't know. And then 90% of decision makers say that they never respond to cold outreach. So all in all, these factors, they make it harder than ever for sellers and marketers to win business for a company. And the fact is that the trend is unlikely to reverse itself. If anything, people are relying more and more on the internet and social sites to help them make these decisions. And quite honestly, it's pretty easy to see why. The buyers are viewing all of those online sources as both helpful and also unbiased. But the great news is that even though buyers are more informed, it doesn't have to weaken or impact a seller's or marketer's influence. The way that buyers are purchasing products is changing. So as a result, sellers and marketers are adapting and changing how they sell things to them. And some of the most successful professionals are using new approaches to reaching today's prospects. So again, top performers are using social sites like LinkedIn, like Twitter, and the other icons that you see here to gain access to decision makers, to build those relationships, and then what's most important is influencing the buying decision by sharing good content and gaining thought leadership and providing value through social networks. Collectively, that's known as social selling. Of course, I know that we have a lot of marketers today on the call here as well, and the tactics that we're going to talk about apply both to sellers and marketers. And it works. So there are studies that have been done across hundreds of companies and thousands of sales executives, and the data supports social selling across every industry and every size company. Everything from total team attainment of quota to forecast accuracy and renewal rate. Those that are using social selling tactics and activities are outperforming their peers across the board. So absolutely it works. So, and that's great, but of course what we want to do today is give you some tangible steps and also talk about some best practices to help you start making a difference at your company today as well. Before we jump right into those steps and those best practices, I did want to make a quick point, and that's a lot of times we get the question of, okay, great, I get it. Social selling is important. I know I need to be involved, but where do I start if I'm brand new? And the answer is, of course, it depends, but overall we'd recommend that you'd always stay by the principle of fishing where the fish are. And by that, I mean focusing on the most active social networks for your industry and your line of business. Overall, there is some consistency across social networks in the B2B space, right? Here listed are the top 5 social networks by both the audience size and the amount of activity or communication and engagement across those social networks. By far, LinkedIn outperforms everything else as the #1 network to use for social selling and even social marketing. I think it's 93% of business professionals and marketers are using LinkedIn in some form of capacity. So that's what we're really going to focus on today, using LinkedIn as our springboard to get everybody started. But of course, everything that we talk about, the whole foundation of the roadmap for success that we're about to get into, it applies across all networks. So if you find that Twitter is your sweet spot, and that's where most of your prospects are, or even Facebook or another social network, remember that it's not so much the network that you use, but the tactics that you use to find, connect with, and then build the relationships and provide value with others online.
So, Kristen, I just want to jump in real quick. I was in a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about LinkedIn briefly, and I learned that there are 120 million SMBs on LinkedIn in the U.S. today, which is a huge number. So that blew me out of the water a little bit.
Yeah, and that just goes to show, never before have sales execs or even marketers had access to both so many companies and information about those companies and also the individuals that work there. You can use search and other tactics to really hone into those. It's a living, breathing, updated lead list essentially for you. So definitely that's a great stat, and definitely we'll talk about how to tap into that. Perfect. So kind of as we jump right into the roadmap here in today's agenda, we've broken it up into 3 distinct areas. So the first is creating that buyer-centric LinkedIn profile. So this is really all about, yes, making sure that you have an online presence on LinkedIn, but it's also about converting your profiles away from extension of your online resume into something that's really going to help showcase your value and show how you solve a real need. The second area is about building relationships. So when we talk about this, and again, we'll get into some more details in just a minute, this is all about best practices for how you're going to connect with other individuals, best practices for growing your professional network, and then, of course, providing that value through content to stay top of mind, to influence that buying decision. And then finally, the last pillar really are best practices for continued success. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the key areas to focus on with regards to your social voice, with your content frequency, and even frequency of just dedicating time to social selling in general. And then we'll talk a little bit about some tools and some time management tips to help you stay consistent and stay successful. Okay, perfect. So as we jump right into the first pillar of creating a buyer-centric social profile, again, this is all about turning your profile from that resume into that lead generation tool to help you attract buyers and also provide value. Again, never before have you had the opportunity to communicate the value that your company provides with such a large group. So we have, that statistic again that we talked about earlier, 93% of buyers are using social and search to look for solutions and narrow down vendors in the buying process. Because of this, it's absolutely critical that you have an optimized profile so that that's going to appear in the search results of your prospects when they're looking for a solution that you provide. And then, of course, when you are found, having it be polished and clearly demonstrate the value that you provide so that you can make a positive first impression. You can differentiate yourself, of course, showcasing your credibility and capability. It's really about social proof, right? It's social proof as prospects are conducting their research on you. You can build your trust and then demonstrate that compatibility or capability, because 81% of buyers are more likely to engage with individuals and companies that have a strong professional online brand. So as we jump into each of these areas, I have a few different keys to success. The first one, with creating the buyer-centric social profile, the first key to success is polished branding. And meaning these are just the areas that you can optimize visually to help extend your professional brand. Now, according to LinkedIn, you are 11 times more likely to have your profile viewed if you have professional images uploaded. So not only is this branding going to help your profile generate additional exposure and views, but again, it's going to have a pretty big impact when someone does click through and look at your profile. There was actually a pretty recent eye tracking study that was done, and it determined where people look first when they look at someone's social media profiles online. So the study determined what part of the page their eyes gravitate to first. And they found that with LinkedIn specifically, over 85% of people look at your profile picture first before anything else on that page, even before that person's name. So again, your branding is so important. It's your introduction to buyers. So it's pretty critical that you have that professional imagery uploaded that helps represent who you are in a positive way. So I have listed here a very brief checklist for your polished branding as it relates to LinkedIn. Of course, we have your headshot, so that's your profile picture. We have an extender header or background photo that appears, you'll see on Jeff's profile, just in the background right here, just like Twitter. And then we also have, as a broad best practice, is to maintain consistency across your social networks. I know that we're focusing primarily on LinkedIn today because we only have a short time together, but as something that we would recommend is if you do have a presence on Twitter or Facebook, even Google+, other social networks, having that same profile picture and that same header background image is something that we'd recommend so your prospects and others know that it's you and you can maintain that consistency. As we go through everything, and yeah, go ahead.
We've got one question in the chat, and it's potential that you're going to be addressing this later, but just wanted to bring it up. A couple of folks are asking about Sales Navigator in LinkedIn and whether you recommend that or just a regular subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. So it honestly depends on your role. Sales Navigator is absolutely a good tool to help you get more search results, for example. So if those of you are familiar with LinkedIn and you're running advanced searches, they actually cap the number of search results that come through if you have a free license. Sales Navigator allows you to gain more access to additional search results. You also have additional filters that you can use in your search criteria or those search results. Other features, you can save leads, you get more saved searches. So Sales Navigator definitely has its benefits. You know, what I'd recommend doing is figure out how specifically you're using LinkedIn, if you're using it more from a lead generation perspective or if you're doing more targeted listening, and then determine if it's right for you. It does come with a pretty hefty price tag. There's a lot that you can do with the free version of LinkedIn, but of course they have productized that more sales-focused version with Sales Navigator, and it has a lot of benefits.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. So perfect. So the second key to success with your buyer-centric social profile is that it's optimized for search. So again, remembering how many people are using search and social to look for solutions and to look for people that are knowledgeable about the solutions in the buying process, if you optimize your LinkedIn profile, for example, with keywords that someone's looking for in search, you're going to have such a much easier time or process coming up in those search results that one of your prospects is looking for. So again, one of the main criteria for where any web page will rank on a search engine result is the matching of keywords that a person is searching for. And your LinkedIn profile will be displayed in those search results as its own page and as its own listing if it contains keywords that match a user's search. Of course, not to mention helping your profile rank highly in the internal LinkedIn search engine itself. So as you're thinking about keywords,
solutions in our client's best interest. We offer diversified services management and have a solution for all.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So thinking about keywords that you want to put in your profile, I recommend thinking about what somebody might type into a Bing search or another search engine when they're looking for a solution to something that you provide. Think about keywords that help describe how you solve a business need, about what value you provide to others. What we recommend is focusing on 2 or 3 keywords or phrases to start, and then making sure that those keywords appear frequently throughout your LinkedIn profile, and of course, any other social profile that you're using. So one of the main areas to look at is your LinkedIn headline, as an example. And you'll see the 2 kind of, again, examples on the bottom of your screen here. So your headline, for those of you that aren't familiar, is that line of text on your LinkedIn profile that appears just below your name. And by default, LinkedIn will pull in the text of what your current job title is. So anything under your current experience. And you'll see that kind of outlined in that blue example on the left. So Josh Adams, VP of Sales at Adams Communications, right? It's automatically going to pull that in. But what you can do is actually edit that area and use that to include both the keywords that you're targeting and also help showcase that value proposition of what you can provide to others if they choose to do business with you. So again, it's just an example, but in the red outlined area, you can see that this person has updated their headline to say, helping enterprise companies leverage cloud computing solutions to grow their business, right? Again, it might be a little bit broad, but you can see how you can start to inject some of those keywords into your headline and then into other areas of your profile to explain not what your job title is at your current company, but the products and services that you help to provide to others and the need and the value that you solve for others. Kind of along the same lines with showcasing that value, again, it's one of the main themes of today's session is displaying your value through other areas on LinkedIn. I know that we're very quickly going through some of this, and there's a number of areas to talk about. As an aside, we have an assignment at the very end that everyone's going to get access to. It's almost an action plan. So we'll be walking you through step by step how to put some of these recommendations into action, specific areas to click on, literally step by step on how to take advantage to these. So don't worry about completing all of them on the call today or writing them down. We're going to give you an action plan to make sure that this is really easy for you at the end. But overall, the theme here is using the different areas of your profile to showcase that value. We talked about your headline. Again, you can use your keywords and talk about how you provide value in your summary. Your summary takes a little bit more time. We'd recommend that it's a paragraph or 2 long, and it includes those chosen keywords, but really explaining how you provide value to others. Your professional portfolio, that is where you can upload videos, white papers, case studies, solution briefs, other documents and materials that actually stick on your profile. And then, of course, through your content publication. We're going to talk about content again in just a minute, but overall, using your content to showcase your value and not focusing solely on a hard sell, but showcasing how you provide thought leadership is really key here. Great. So moving on to that second pillar of building meaningful relationships. Now that you have that customer-centric profile, we want to focus on connecting with others, growing your network, and then of course, again, continuing to provide that value through that content that you publish. So LinkedIn provides you with a great vehicle to establish relationships and build those human-to-human connections. Because of course, after all, people do business with other people first and foremost. Connecting with others online via LinkedIn and your other social sites, it also allows for deeper penetration within an organization. So this stat is from Corporate Executive Board, and they say that 5.4 individuals are involved in the average buying decision. Of course, as you connect with others and grow your network on these social sites, you can have those extra touch points inside of a company. And then social sites like LinkedIn, they also help you increase your access to decision maker through the use of introductions, for example, which we'll talk about in just a second. So therefore, instead of having to rely on traditional means like phone and email, which we talked about earlier, they are incredibly noisy, you can gain a direct pipe to communication with those decision makers through social. And then finally, providing value through content. Becoming a trusted advisor, being seen as a subject matter expert. Publishing content, it acts like leaving little breadcrumbs to stay top of mind and remain visible. According to McKinsey, they say that 11 is the magic number of times that a consumer will actually touch a vendor before making a decision. And as you're providing value through the content, it helps you get to that number 11. You'll stay top of mind with others. And of course, you can pay attention to what others are interested in and focusing on buying signals, which again we'll get to in just a minute, to help you target the right content to the right person at the right time in the buying process. Keys to success with building meaningful relationships. Let's talk about making an empowered connection. So there are 2 recommendations on how to connect with others on LinkedIn. The first is through a custom connection request. We know that it's really easy to use LinkedIn's Who You May Know wizard and just click the blue connect button. But what we recommend, and this really can't be stressed enough, especially if you're targeting specific individuals, is to take the time to send a custom request to connect on LinkedIn. You're going to increase your response rate up to 80% higher with a custom connection request than you would with that very generic, "Hi, Kristen, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn," send. So again, it just takes a few extra seconds, but the benefits are really far-reaching. And then with regards to introductions on LinkedIn, there's a statistic that I love that says 73% of people, they prefer to work with somebody that's connected to somebody that they know, and then 82% of executives will respond to an introduction request on LinkedIn. So what that means is that if you can get somebody to actually make that introduction for you within LinkedIn, that third person, the person that you're trying to get a hold of or connect with on LinkedIn, has a really high chance of responding. So tips to get a high response rate when asking for your introduction on LinkedIn, it's 4-fold. First, of course, we recommend that you start with something personal. "Hey, Jimmy, I hope all is well with the family. It was great to see you or run into you in the airport last week," whatever it might be. Something really casual, to start the conversation off on a little bit of a lighter note. Number 2, be clear about why you want the introduction. Be forthcoming. If you think that the person that you're looking for an introduction to would benefit from hearing about your products and services, say so. Third, of course, be gracious. Say thank you. And then lastly, offer a way out. Mention that if the person doesn't know the prospect very well, or if they feel uncomfortable, of course, say that, you understand if they don't feel comfortable making that request. But overall, including these 4 kind of broader stroke categories in those requests to connect and that introduction will really help amplify that rate of acceptance for introductions. The next key to success is providing value through content. So what I have listed here are 5 characteristics of highly effective content for social sellers. So I'll run through these pretty briefly. Again, they are in that assignment or in that action plan that everyone will be getting. But the first is, of course, relevant text. This is fairly straightforward, making sure that the text is valuable to your audience members, that it's going to spark an interest. The second characteristic is a clickable asset. So for an example, this could be simply a hyperlink to an article or white paper where they can find some more information. The third characteristic is a visual enhancer. It could be an image or a video that's embedded to both help that content seem appealing, and also studies have shown that if you include an image, the social sites actually give it a higher authority in terms of the display order. The fourth characteristic is targeted messaging. So mentioning a user or a company, of course, if applicable. And then finally, the fifth characteristic is network-specific language. So making sure that your content is the right length, it's the right tone for your audience, etc. So now that you know, of course, how to create that meaningful social content, the next action is really responding to buying signals and trigger events. So whether it's contacting somebody who's interacted with your content, or it's reaching out to somebody that has indicated they might be in the evaluation stage, if you respond quickly and if you're genuine with that communication, you can very easily start adding deals to your pipeline. Most of the time, you may not know what stage somebody is in the buying process. So just in general, blanket providing value at each stage is really key, because studies have shown that 74% of buyers actually end up choosing the sales professional and the solution that was first to provide them value in the sales process. So if you're publishing a good mix of content and you're providing value across the board, even if you're not targeting users, you're going to have a better chance of having your content be seen and also provide that value up front. Now, we have this chart here with regards to content publication overall. Again, your goal, providing value and being a part of the conversation throughout the buyer journey. We've also added this as a resource available to download after the fact, because I know that there's a lot of information. But overall, it's important to mention that individuals are looking to consume or read different types of content depending on what stage of the buying process they're in. So on this diagram, this walks you through the buying process, and then also what type of content is most consumed at each stage. So on the very left, the left column, we have here the stage of the buying process that someone goes through, everything from realizing a need for a solution to performing research, establishing the criteria of the solution that they want, and then, of course, finally evaluating vendors. On the very right, you're going to see what actions users are taking. So they're researching solutions. They're starting to understand what's available. They're prioritizing, and they're evaluating. And then in the very middle, you'll see, again, the stage from awareness to education, validation, and sales, and what type of content users are most looking to consume in that stage. So for example, at the very beginning, when users are in that awareness stage, they're mostly looking for blog posts and industry news, articles, best practices, right? And then as they move through the buying process, they shift from looking for more generalized content to much more specific content like checklists and white papers. And then they start to look for testimonials and case studies, those validators, if you will, when they're about to make their decision. Again, I know this chart has a lot of information on it, but it's important to note that different pieces of content are being consumed at each stage. In general, you may not know where somebody is, so trying to publish a good mix of content, everything from those blog posts to white papers, is really going to help your content be found by a broader audience. So as we start to talk about best practices for continued success, the first thing that I want to know is your social voice. So what we abide by, or what we recommend, is that you follow the 411 rule. And the 411 rule is that out of every 6 pieces of content, 4 should focus on providing what I'm going to call blanket value. So again, sharing industry news and trends. If you find an article that's interesting and any story that's really relevant to your audience, share that. You can curate content from a number of different sources. We'll talk about that in just a second, but again, using content from the Microsoft sites or even their social assets, the corporate social accounts from Microsoft or Microsoft partner networks, you can use that to help fill up that bucket of 4 out of every 6. One post should include a humanizing element. So again, this could be, for example, even about a sports team that you love or a good book that you read, something that shows a little bit more about you. It could be a charity golf tournament that you participated in. And then one can be hard sales content. So it could be a link to promotional offer or something with a legitimate call to action. Again, overall, the main goal is providing value. This, of course, can be through links to materials that position your company or your products as a leading solution. That still does count in the top 4, providing value, showing best practices. But keep in mind that you should strike that balance between hard sales content and then information that's going to help you build trust with your online audience. The second best practice in terms of content calendar guidelines. So here are some publication tips for LinkedIn. So according to LinkedIn, they found that their busiest times, and by busiest I mean most effective in terms of interacting on content, is morning and then midday, Monday through Friday. So think about it. If you get into work and you sit down at your computer, you have your cup of coffee, you might open LinkedIn and read news and articles that your network has published. Those are really peak times in which you can publish your content to LinkedIn as well.
So Kristen, is that any midday anywhere in the world?
Yeah, so it's a pretty broad stroke, right? So they found that their users are logging on, interacting with content on their morning and their midday. So if you have a global audience, really you have a pretty broad spectrum of when you can publish content.
Perfect.
But let's say you're a little bit more regionalized, I would focus on the morning and midday for your specific time zone. And then
Thanks,
when
Kristen.
you're looking, yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at the frequency of content that you should be publishing, what we'd recommend is that you post content at least 3 times a week. And that's just if you're getting started. LinkedIn's found that you can publish content up to 20 times a month, so almost 1 time a day, before you kind of reach that point of diminishing returns where your interaction is going to decrease or the interaction in your content decreases. But as you're just getting started, even if you just published content once on Monday, once on Wednesday, once on Friday, it's really going to help you start cutting through that clutter and establishing your social footprint. When we talk about what content to publish, curate, right? And by curate, I mean reuse content that other people have published, whether it's a blog post or an article on any of the Microsoft sites. You don't always have to write your own content. Yes, that has a lot of value in itself if you have the resources to write blog posts and publish content that is your thought leadership content. But otherwise, it's perfectly fine and sometimes even better to reshare content that's written by a third party. So definitely find and then reshare content written from other sources. But then overall, again, we recommend that you test what timing, test what frequency works best for you. It's going to differ from your time zone to your industry to the size of your company. It differs across the board. So there's no hard, fast, set in stone guidelines here. These are in fact just guidelines. So what we recommend is that you test things out, figure out what content is getting the most interaction, what time when you publish content that gets the most interaction, and then adjust and refine that schedule based on what performs best for you and your company. Time management. So the next best practice is that you start by dedicating a specific amount of time for social each day. So for example, if you're just getting started, even if you block off just 20 minutes at the start of the day or the end of your day for social sales activities. Remember, with anything new, you need to build it into your daily routine before it can become a habit. If you need a reminder, block off time in your calendar every day for social sales activities before it becomes a part of your daily routine. It's really going to help make sure that you both allocate enough time for social, but then also not lose track of time spent in the process. We know that there's so many benefits of being involved with social selling, social marketing, social in general, but it's also really easy to lose track of time. So keeping that schedule we found is a best practice for many people, especially if you're just starting to get started. The next recommendation is to be very purposeful with the time that you spend online. So determining a few tasks that you're going to complete during that block of time that you have set aside for social. For example, you might say that in this 20 minutes, I'm going to focus on adding 3 new people to my network and sending really good custom connection requests. Or I'm going to interact with 4 people that are in my network, or 4 companies or individuals that I'm specifically targeting. Or maybe I want to curate and publish 2 pieces of content or schedule those out to be published. Remember, again, these are just examples, but if you have a plan not only for the amount of time that you want to spend, but very sales-specific activities that you want to accomplish during that block of time, it's going to help you make sure that you use that time wisely. And then we have planning for consistency. So one of the biggest mistakes that we see is that individuals, they dedicate the time up front to social. It's new, it's exciting, and they do a really great job of publishing content, of building up that valuable online network. And people become really interested in what they have to say, and they're listening because they have that standard frequency. But then all of a sudden, we know life gets in the way. They slow down their publishing frequency more and more, and then hardly publish any content at all. And as a result, their social network starts to tune them out a little bit. Those relationships, they weaken a little bit. So as a recommendation, once you build social into your daily routine, once you have that kind of guideline, that calendar, and those tasks of what you want to accomplish, make sure that you stay dedicated to maintaining that consistent and valuable presence. So remember that social selling is an evolution and not a revolution. It is the same sales activities that everyone is doing day to day. It's just a little bit of a shift in how you're connecting with individuals, how you're communicating with them, and how you're staying top of mind. Building these into your daily routine, like we talked about. Curating content from multiple sources. Using that great Microsoft content that's already available for you, using that to your advantage. You already know that it's on brand, it's relevant, and that it's going to help dedicate or showcase the value of those products and services. And then you can use tools to improve your efficiency and your effectiveness. There are a lot of scheduling tools that are out there that on a Monday you can schedule content throughout the rest of the week. And other tools such as, of course, we have the Microsoft Partner Social Port. So this is a tool, it's one of the most beneficial tools for time management and for increasing your success with social selling. It's, of course, a social selling technology. You'll see here that with tools like this, you can manage all of your social accounts from one location. So instead of having to go to LinkedIn.com and Twitter.com, for example, to publish content, you can do that right from within one ecosystem. You can access all of that really great Microsoft-approved content. That content library is already imported here for you. You can perform social listening, so you can monitor both your top prospects and even your competitors and other thought leaders to stay on top of industry news and trends and what others find valuable and interesting. You can receive engagement alerts. So those are those buying signals and trigger events. If someone interacts on your content, you can then see who they are and determine if they're a good prospect for you that you want to follow up with. Improving your content frequency and efficiency, again, just a tool to help manage your time, some of those best practices that we just talked about, and then tracking your overall effectiveness. So this is a product that my company provides. So if you want more information, there's a URL at the bottom of that slide. And also, of course, my colleague Jason is here to answer any questions. He runs that program on the Microsoft partner side. So as we round everything out and near the end of the content today, we do have an assignment, and that is going to be delivered quite shortly. And what that is the 8 key indicators of successful social sellers. In that document, I believe it's maybe 8 or 10 pages, but it includes step-by-step instructions to help amplify your success on LinkedIn. We literally walk you through everything from your polished personal branding. We have the very specific photo specifications for your LinkedIn profile image, for that header photo. We have the pixel sizes, everything there for you. We talk about optimizing your profiles for search. And we have activities on how to identify those keywords that you want to be found for, and then how to track those results and then refine your efforts. With your controlled settings, we have a checklist on how to make your profile public, for example. So you can increase the number of eyeballs on your profile, increase that lead generation. We'll talk about refining your notification settings so you can stay on top of key individuals and both group communication that you're interested in. Supporting collateral, that is the professional portfolio that we talked about a little earlier. So including those white papers, case studies, even videos that you might want to keep on your profile. We have step-by-step instructions on how to add that material to your profile. Personal connection points, we didn't talk too much about today, but essentially this is additional information that can help uncover mutual commonalities with your prospects and your connections online. So we have some recommendations on which areas to fill out on LinkedIn. With group involvement, we have instructions on how to find the most relevant groups that are applicable to you, and then how to join those and refine those notification settings. With your robust network, I know that we talked about connecting a lot today, but we have some instructions on how to import your connections from Outlook into LinkedIn to grow your network, instructions on other items to include in a personalized request to connect, and then some recommendations on connecting with new contacts each week. And then finally, engaging content. So we have some instructions on where you can find content, what you can post, content ideas if you're a little bit more advanced as well. So I know that as some homework, we're asking that you complete at least 4 of the 8 indicators, but that's really going to give you a good foundation for your LinkedIn social selling effectiveness. And with that, we have our information here up on the screen. Again, thank you for your time today. I know we wanted to end 5 minutes prior to the bottom of the hour, but please let us know if you have any questions. And again, it was a pleasure being here and talking with everybody today.
Kristen, thank you so much. Just such a great session. So much really actionable content in there. And as Kristen mentioned, we will have a great homework assignment that Kristen and Jason have put together that really walks you through each of those steps. So as usual, you'll see that up probably tomorrow afternoon on the Get Optimized site in the Week 6 folder. So thank you so much, Kristen, really just both for your business, but I think also just for your own personal LinkedIn network. I mean, this is just great and super helpful content, and again, just so actionable, so easy to take action on this. So just a quick reminder, we are in Week 6, so we've got 2 weeks ahead of us. Next week, we're going to be talking about search engine marketing. We're going to be talking about driving inbound leads. So some really fantastic content there. And then we're going to close out the program in Week 8 talking about creating that sustainable marketing cycle. So obviously, you know, we want to make sure that you're setting things up and acting on marketing activities now. But just as importantly, when it comes to marketing, it's not kind of a one and done. It really is all about creating that long-term practice. You know, Kristen mentioned that today in terms of, you know, making sure you're going in regularly and taking these actions. So it's super important to kind of keep that going, you know, as a regular occurrence and something that you do. And then we did have a question on the contest, so I want to come back to that. Just let me get that slide up. So in terms of the contest, we're going to have the how to actually go and sign up for this contest available later this week. So watch out for that in an email from us, from the GetOpt alias, and then also we'll be talking about this more on Thursday's office hours. So basically the way that you enter is that you'll provide us with an example of marketing that you've started undertaking or have completed as part of this program. So whether that's sending out an email campaign or updating your Office 365 landing page. After today's session, maybe it's updating your LinkedIn profile for your company, you know, and specifically maybe focusing on some Office 365 content or, you know, leveraging your testimonials that you collected in the early sessions that now you're putting up on your website and in your LinkedIn profile. So really all of these things come together, and what we want to see is that you've been able to start taking action on that and submit and show us, you know, what you're doing and what you plan to continue doing beyond these 8 weeks. So lots more information to come on that. We've got 2 minutes left, so if there's any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat window or come off mute. As usual, we will have our office hours on Thursday, where we have a full hour to dedicate to any questions. In the meantime, we always have the Yammer group available. If you've got questions for our team, if you've got questions for your peers, that's a great place to post them. We will also be posting some comments and some pieces of information from today there as a follow-up. And with that, are there any final questions? Great. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and look for all of the details, including this recording, the deck, as well as that homework assignment and some additional content available on the Get Optimized page tomorrow afternoon.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kristen.